Jake Morrison walked slowly through the long halls of the Galactic Council building on Nexus Prime. His boots made soft sounds on the smooth metal floor as he moved toward the main chamber. He had been coming to this place for 5 years now, always asking for the same things, always getting the same answers. Today would be different, though. Today he would not ask for anything. The alien guards at the door barely looked at him as he passed. They were tall blue creatures with 4 arms and eyes that glowed like small suns. The Viridians had been running the galaxy for over 1,000 years, and they saw humans as nothing more than young children who needed to be watched and controlled. Inside the chamber, hundreds of alien beings sat in rows that went up toward the ceiling. Each species had their own section, their own special seats, their own level of power in the council. The humans had 12 seats near the back, far from the important decisions. Jake took his place and waited for the meeting to begin. The council leader was a massive creature that looked like a walking tree, with too many branches. His voice was deep and slow when he spoke, like rocks falling down a mountain. "We will now hear requests from the younger species," he said, not bothering to hide his boredom. Jake stood up. "Commander Morrison, representing Earth and all human colonies," he said in a clear voice. "I come before you today to request the immediate release of Dr. Lisa Hamilton and her research team." The tree creature made a sound like wind through leaves. Dr. Hamilton was working on dangerous technology without proper permits. Her research could harm developing species like your own. "Her research could solve our energy problems," Jake replied. "People are dying on our outer colonies because they don't have enough power for basic life support. The Council has provided adequate energy solutions for human needs," another alien said. This one looked like a giant insect with crystal wings. "Your species must learn patience." Jake felt his hands tighten into fists. The energy solutions they provided were old, weak, and barely enough to keep human settlements alive. Meanwhile, the same quantum technology that Lisa had been developing powered every luxury station and pleasure world the alien species enjoyed. "I also request permission to rescue human survivors from the Kepler system," Jake continued. "Our ships detected life signs from Colony 7 before the raiders hit. The Kepler system falls under Kethtar protection," the tree creature said. "Human ships have no authority there." "Those are human lives," Jake said, his voice getting louder. "Our people are dying while we sit here talking. The younger species must learn their place in the galactic order," the insect alien replied. "Your emotional responses show why you are not ready for greater responsibilities." Jake looked around the chamber at all the alien faces staring down at him. Some looked bored. Others seemed amused by what they saw as a child throwing a tantrum. None of them cared that human beings were suffering while these creatures debated jurisdiction and proper procedures. "Is there anything else, Commander Morrison?" the tree creature asked. "We have more important matters to discuss." Jake was quiet for a long moment. 300 years of this, he thought. 300 years of being told to wait, to be patient, to trust that the older species knew what was best for humanity. 300 years of watching human innovation being stolen or destroyed. Human colonies being abandoned to raiders and natural disasters. Human dignity being trampled under alien rules that made no sense. "No," Jake said finally. "There is nothing else." He walked out of the chamber without looking back. The alien guards didn't try to stop him. Why would they? He was just another human, just another member of a young species that would eventually learn to follow the rules like all the others had. But as Jake made his way back to the human embassy building, he was already composing a message in his head. It would be short, simple, and sent to every human commander, scientist, and colony leader in known space. The message would travel through channels the aliens didn't know about, using technology they had never seen, reaching people who had been waiting for this moment their entire lives. He reached his office and sat down at his communication console. The device looked like any other standard galactic communicator, but hidden inside were modifications that Lisa Hamilton had designed before she was arrested. Modifications that allowed instant communication across any distance without using the alien-controlled relay networks. Jake typed 3 words and sent them out into space. "The gloves come off on Earth." Admiral Susan Blake received the message while reviewing supply reports for the Pacific Fleet. She smiled for the first time in months and began sending orders to commanders across the solar system. On Mars, Colonel Matt Johnson was inspecting the defenses around New Angeles when his communicator buzzed. He read the message, nodded once, and walked quickly toward the underground command center that officially didn't exist. In the asteroid belt, Captain Amy Rodriguez commanded a mining operation that extracted rare metals for human industry. When she got Jake's message, she gave orders that caused her workers to stop digging and start uncovering weapons that had been hidden for decades. All across human space, people who had spent their lives pretending to follow alien rules began revealing who they really were. Scientists opened secret laboratories, engineers activated hidden factories, soldiers picked up weapons that were supposed to be impossible for humans to build. The preparation phase was over. For 2 centuries, while the aliens thought they were keeping humanity under control, humans had been getting ready for war. They had studied every alien species, mapped every military installation, and built weapons that would shock the galaxy. Jake Morrison sent one more message before leaving his office for the last time. This one went to every alien government, every council member, every species that had spent centuries treating humans like children who needed constant supervision. The message was longer this time, but still simple enough for any being in the galaxy to understand. You have made it clear that human lives, human innovation, and human dignity mean nothing to you. We have learned from your example. From this moment forward, your opinions mean nothing to us. Consider this our formal withdrawal from the Galactic Council and all treaties signed under its authority. Any attempt to enforce your will on human territory will be considered an act of war. As Jake walked toward the spaceport where his ship was waiting, alarms began going off all over Nexus Prime. The aliens were finally beginning to understand that something had changed, but they had no idea what was coming. The humans had finally said enough. The war would begin within hours. Dr. Kevin Wright pressed his hand against what looked like a control panel for checking wheat temperature on the farming station near Jupiter. The aliens who inspected this place every few months always saw exactly what they expected. Humans growing food in space using simple technology that the Council had approved for young species like humanity. They never suspected that the real facility was hidden 5 kilometers below where they walked. The floor opened beneath Kevin's feet as the secret elevator carried him down through layers of metal and rock that blocked any scanning equipment the aliens might use. When the doors opened, he stepped into a laboratory filled with weapons that could destroy entire star systems. Quantum devices that turned matter into energy and back again filled one wall. Gravity generators that could create small black holes sat on workbenches. Energy weapons that surpassed anything the Council possessed were lined up in neat rows. Kevin walked toward a group of scientists who had been waiting for his arrival. These people had spent decades pretending to be simple farmers and technicians, while secretly building the most advanced military technology in the galaxy. Every human agricultural station, mining operation, and research facility had a hidden purpose that the aliens never discovered. Status report, Kevin said to Dr. Linda Chen, who looked up from her workstation where she was making final adjustments to a device that could disable entire fleets. The quantum disruptors are ready, Linda replied. We have enough units to destroy every major alien military base within 50 light-years of Earth. Each device can create an energy field that will make their ships and weapons completely useless. Kevin nodded and walked to another workstation where a team was putting finishing touches on weapons that could manipulate gravity itself. What about the gravity bombs? He asked. 12 units completed, the lead scientist answered. Each bomb can either collapse a planet's core or create temporary wormholes for emergency evacuations. We could use them to save our people or destroy alien worlds depending on what the situation requires. This was the secret the Council had never learned during their 3 centuries of controlling humanity. While they thought their technology restrictions were keeping humans weak and dependent, human scientists had been developing weapons that made alien military technology look like stone tools. Every farming station grew food, but they also manufactured components for weapons systems. Every mining operation extracted minerals, but they also built parts for warships. Every research facility conducted approved experiments, but they also created devices that could reshape the laws of physics. On Earth, General Tim Brooks walked through a building that appeared to be a normal university in New York City. Students attended classes about literature and history, while professors taught courses on mathematics and science. Everything looked completely ordinary, which was exactly the point. The building's secret floor existed in the official construction plans, but visitors could never find it because it didn't appear on any public maps. Tim entered the hidden room that contained files on every alien species, government and military leader in known space. The information had been gathered over 2 centuries by humans who volunteered for cultural exchange programs with alien civilizations. The aliens thought these volunteers were eager students who wanted to learn about advanced cultures and technologies. They were actually intelligence agents who had been trained to gather information while appearing completely harmless. "Give me the complete report on Viridian defenses," Tim said to his intelligence chief, a woman who had spent 30 years coordinating spy operations across alien space. "Total penetration achieved 15 years ago," she replied, calling up holographic displays that showed detailed maps of Viridian military installations. "We know the location of every weapons platform, every fleet base, and every communication relay in their territory. Agent Carol Adams has been working as a translator in their high command for 12 years. She has access to their most secret military plans, and she can disable their primary defense systems from the inside whenever we give the order." Tim smiled grimly as he reviewed the intelligence reports. The aliens had made a critical error in believing that humans were naturally curious and eager to please. They never suspected that every human cultural exchange student was actually a spy who was mapping their weaknesses and building networks that could be activated when war began. "What about the Kethtar warriors?" Tim asked. "Agent Bob Turner married into their ruling family 20 years ago," came the reply. "His alien wife thinks he's just a harmless human who admires their warrior culture. She doesn't know that he's actually earned genuine respect from their military leaders by proving himself in combat trials. When the fighting starts, he can use their own honor codes and traditions to turn their forces against their government." Tim nodded with satisfaction. This was humanity's greatest advantage in the coming war. Other species saw them as weak, curious, and eager to learn from superior civilizations. The aliens never imagined that every human trader, tourist, and exchange student was carefully gathering intelligence that would be used to destroy them. Meanwhile, in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, Captain Amy Rodriguez gave the order that would reveal humanity's true military strength. "Begin Operation Revelation," she announced into her communications system. All across the solar system, mining ships that had spent decades harvesting minerals suddenly stopped their normal work. Metal plates slid away from their hulls to reveal weapon systems that belonged on military battleships. Cargo holds opened to show fighter squadrons that had been hidden inside fake mining equipment. Storage compartments revealed missile launchers and energy cannons that could destroy alien cruisers. Amy's flagship, which alien observers knew as a simple cargo vessel called the Peaceful Harvest, transformed before their eyes into a dreadnought-class warship. The mineral processing equipment they had seen during inspections was actually camouflage for quantum torpedo tubes that could penetrate any known defensive system. The oversized heating units for the cargo bays were really fusion reactors that powered shields strong enough to withstand planet-killing weapons. "All mining vessels report ready for combat operations," Amy's communications officer announced. "The fleet is moving into attack formation." Amy looked at her tactical display, which showed hundreds of ships throughout the asteroid belt, revealing their true nature. Each vessel had been designed to look like civilian mining or transport equipment, while actually carrying enough firepower to level cities. The asteroid mining operation had been cover for the largest secret military construction project in human history. On Mars, Colonel Matt Johnson descended into the command bunker that had been built beneath New Angeles during the early days of human colonization. The bunker had supposedly been constructed as protection against meteor impacts, and the aliens had even helped design some of the shielding systems. They never realized they were helping humans create the most secure military command center in the galaxy. Matt entered the main operations room, where dozens of officers monitored communications from human forces across known space. Every ship, station, and planetary defense network was connected through a communication system that the aliens couldn't detect, intercept, or jam. While other species relied on hyperspace relays that could be targeted and destroyed during warfare, humans had developed quantum entanglement communication that worked instantly across any distance. "All units report ready for Phase 1 operations," his communications officer announced. "Admiral Blake is waiting for your signal." Matt looked at displays showing human military positions throughout the galaxy. The aliens thought they knew where every human ship and base was located, but they had only seen the official fleet that humanity was allowed to maintain. The real military force had been hidden so successfully that even human civilians didn't know it existed. "Send the signal to Admiral Blake," Matt ordered. "Tell her we're ready to show the galaxy what humans can really do." Admiral Susan Blake stood on the bridge of the UES Defender, which the Galactic Council believed was Earth's most powerful warship. The aliens saw it as an impressive but primitive vessel that posed no real threat to their advanced military technology. They had no idea that it was just the flagship of a fleet they had never seen. "Begin decloak sequence," Susan commanded. Space around Earth's orbit began to shimmer and bend as hundreds of warships became visible for the first time. They had been there all along, hidden by stealth technology that made them completely invisible to alien sensors. Each ship was more advanced than anything in the official human fleet, built in secret shipyards that existed in locations the aliens had never discovered. The hidden fleet had been under construction for 50 years, with each vessel designed to counter the specific advantages of different alien species. The ships carried adaptive armor that could absorb and redirect Viridian energy weapons. They had point defense systems that could track and destroy thousands of small targets simultaneously to counter Kethtar swarm tactics. Their atmospheric processors could neutralize any biological weapon the insect-like Zephyrians might deploy. Dr. Eric Davis activated the final surprise from his facility, hidden beneath the surface of Luna. Lieutenant Dan Murphy flew his fighter through the defense grid around Nexus Prime, like he was dancing through space instead of fighting a war. The massive space station served as the capital of the Galactic Council, and its alien defenders had expected human ships to attack in straight lines, following the predictable patterns that most species used in combat. Instead, Dan and his squadron moved in ways that made no sense to alien tactical computers. The alien defense commander stared at his screens in complete confusion as human fighters seemed to appear and disappear at random locations around his station. Every time he tried to predict where they would attack next, they went somewhere completely different. Their movements violated every rule of space combat that had been used successfully for thousands of years. Dan rolled his fighter upside down and dove toward the station's surface, while firing quantum torpedoes at weapon positions that his targeting computer said were impossible to hit from his current angle. The torpedoes curved through space like living creatures, following paths that seemed to ignore the laws of physics until they struck their targets with perfect accuracy. "Blue leader to all units," Dan announced over his communication system. "These aliens have been fighting the same way for 1,000 years. Time to show them something completely new." His wingman, Captain Lisa Wright, spun her fighter around a massive defense laser and fired a spread of micro-missiles that split apart in mid-flight and attacked the weapon from 6 different directions simultaneously. The alien gunners tried to track all the incoming projectiles, but their targeting systems couldn't handle so many small, fast-moving objects attacking at the same time. "That's another gun down," Lisa reported as the defense laser exploded in a shower of sparks and twisted metal. "These aliens really don't know how to deal with swarm attacks." What the alien commanders didn't understand was that human pilots had trained by studying the flight patterns of birds and insects from Earth. They had learned to think in 3 dimensions, while most alien species still fought as if space were a flat surface. More importantly, human pilots had been taught to change their tactics in the middle of battle based on what they saw happening around them. On the other side of the station, Commander Steve Rogers led a boarding party toward one of the main airlocks. His team moved through space wearing armored suits that looked primitive compared to the sleek designs used by alien military forces. The appearance was completely deceiving because each human Marine carried weapons and equipment that had been designed specifically to counter alien advantages. The Kethtar warriors guarding the airlock were 7 feet tall with natural armor plates that could stop most energy weapons. They were completely confident that their superior size and strength would make short work of any human boarding party. That confidence lasted about 30 seconds after the first human Marine opened fire. Steve's first shot came from a weapon the aliens had never seen before, a gravity rifle that created localized distortions in space and time. The Kethtar warrior suddenly found himself weighing 3 times his normal weight, unable to move as Steve's Marines rushed past him into the station. Their combat armor enhanced their strength and speed to levels that matched or exceeded alien capabilities, while their weapons completely ignored traditional defensive systems. "Airlock secured," Steve reported as his team moved deeper into the station's corridors. "Moving toward the command center now." The alien defenders had expected human boarding parties to fight like the primitive warriors they had studied in Earth's historical records. Instead, they found themselves facing soldiers who combined advanced technology with tactics that seemed to come from nowhere. The humans moved through the station like they had memorized every hallway and ventilation shaft, which they actually had. Engineer Claire Thompson sat in a hidden compartment aboard a human supply ship that was currently docked at Nexus Prime. While the space battle raged outside, she was fighting a different kind of war using her computer keyboard instead of weapons. Her fingers moved quickly across the controls as she accessed the station's computer network through connections that the aliens didn't know existed. For years, human technical specialists had been quietly installing hidden devices in alien computer systems. Every time they had been allowed to perform maintenance work or install software updates, they had left behind small programs that could be activated when needed. Now Claire was using those programs to turn the station's own systems against the beings who operated them. "I'm shutting down their internal communications," Claire reported through her quantum communicator to the human fleet commanders, also redirecting power from their shield generators to their waste recycling systems. That should keep them busy for quite a while. The alien command staff watched in horror as their control screens began showing readings that made no sense. Their defensive shields were failing for no apparent reason. Their weapons were overheating despite normal use, and their communication systems were broadcasting human propaganda instead of tactical information. The station that had been the symbol of alien control over the galaxy was being turned into a weapon against itself. Captain Tony Martinez commanded the human fleet that attacked the Viridian home system. His ships dropped out of hyperspace in a formation that violated every rule of space combat the aliens had ever learned. Instead of maintaining safe distances and engaging in long-range combat, the human ships charged straight toward the alien fleet at maximum speed. The Viridian admiral couldn't believe what his sensors were showing him. "Are these humans completely insane?" he demanded of his officers. "They're flying directly into our optimal firing solution." But as the human ships closed the distance between the two fleets, they began to change in ways that no alien had ever seen before. Hull sections slid apart to reveal additional weapon systems that had been hidden inside what looked like cargo compartments. Engine pods rotated to provide thrust in directions that should have been impossible. Ships that had appeared to be simple cruisers suddenly transformed into configurations that maximize their firepower while minimizing the target area they presented to enemy. Weapons. Tony's flagship opened fire with weapons that seemed to bend the fabric of space around them. His quantum cannons created holes in reality that swallowed enemy missiles before they could reach their intended targets. His gravity torpedoes didn't just damage alien ships when they hit. They crushed the vessels into tiny balls of super-dense matter that collapsed under their own weight. "All units execute pattern Delta," Tony ordered over the fleet communication network. "Let's show these aliens what real space combat looks like." The human ships suddenly spread out in all directions, but not in a random pattern. They moved in a carefully coordinated formation that put each vessel in position to support the others, while creating overlapping fields of fire that covered every possible escape route. The Viridian ships found themselves trapped in a web of human firepower that tightened around them like a closing fist. On the planet's surface far below the space battle, Dr. Karen Lewis activated humanity's most shocking surprise of the war. The massive defense installations that protected the Viridian homeworld had been designed to stop any invasion fleet, but they had never been tested against weapons that attacked from inside their own systems. Karen's infiltration team had spent 10 years posing as maintenance workers and technical specialists on the planet's surface. During that time, they had planted quantum charges in the power cores of every major defense platform. Now, as the space battle raged in orbit overhead, Karen sent a single coded signal that caused every defense installation on the planet to explode. Simultaneously, the Viridian population watched in terror from their cities as their supposedly impregnable defenses disappeared in flashes of light that could be seen clearly from space. In less than 5 minutes, a planetary defense network that had taken centuries to build and had never been defeated in battle was reduced to glowing craters and twisted pieces of metal. "Defense grid completely neutralized," Karen reported to the fleet commanders. "The planet is open for landing operations if you decide they're necessary." But Tony Martinez had no intention of invading the Viridian homeworld. The goal of this attack wasn't conquest or destruction. It was to send a message that could be heard and understood across the entire galaxy. As the last alien warship either surrendered or fled toward the outer edges of the system, Tony opened a communication channel that reached every world in Council space. "This is Captain Martinez of the United Earth Forces," he announced, his voice carrying clearly across interstellar distances. "We have not come here to destroy your civilization or conquer your worlds. We have come to prove that humanity will no longer accept the chains you have placed around us. Any species that wishes to live in peace with Earth will be welcome to negotiate new treaties based on equality and mutual respect. Any species that chooses to continue the old system of oppression and control will face the same fate as the fleets you see burning in space around this system." The message was broadcast on every communication frequency, translated into every known language, and transmitted to every world that had equipment capable of receiving interstellar communications. Within hours, news of the human. President Maria Lopez walked through the corridors of what had once been called the Galactic Council building on Nexus Prime. The massive structure had been renamed Liberation Station, and the changes were visible everywhere she looked. Where once only the voices of elder species had been permitted to speak, now dozens of different languages filled the halls as representatives from previously suppressed civilizations worked together to build something completely new. The war had officially ended 6 months ago, not with a final climactic battle, but with the complete collapse of the old system of galactic government. When the truth about the Council's systematic manipulation and control had been revealed to every world in known space, the remaining elder species had found themselves facing simultaneous rebellions on hundreds of planets. Some had tried to fight back, but their military forces had been designed to maintain order among obedient subject species, not to wage real war against united enemies who knew all their secrets and weaknesses. Most of the elder species had simply surrendered when they realized the futility of their situation and accepted the new reality that was emerging across the galaxy. A few had retreated to their homeworlds and closed their borders completely, choosing total isolation over adaptation to the changed circumstances. But many had surprised everyone, including themselves, by embracing the opportunity to compete on equal terms with other civilizations. For the first time in thousands of years, Maria entered the Great Assembly Hall where representatives from over 300 different species were engaged in intense debates about the formation of the Free Species Alliance. The chamber had been completely redesigned so that no species sat in positions higher than any other. Every voice carried exactly equal weight in the discussions, every culture was treated with genuine respect, and every world had the absolute right to choose its own path forward. The representative from Kepler 442 has been recognized and may address the assembly, Maria announced from her position as the current rotating chairperson. A tall, thin being with blue skin and 4 arms stepped forward to the central speaking platform. 6 months earlier, his people had been slaves working in council-controlled mining operations under conditions that barely kept them alive. Now they were free citizens of an independent republic, and they were using advanced human mining technology to extract valuable resources for their own benefit. Instead of enriching their former masters, the Andorian Republic wishes to formally propose a joint exploration mission to the Magellanic Clouds, he said in heavily accented but perfectly clear human English. Our latest astronomical surveys have detected strong indications of habitable worlds in that distant galaxy, and we believe that a cooperative expedition would provide significant benefits for all Alliance member species. This was the fundamental transformation that had shocked the galaxy even more than any military victory humans had achieved during the war. Instead of fighting over control of territory that already existed, the Alliance was focused on exploration and expansion into previously unknown regions of space. The endless conflicts over resources and territorial boundaries that had defined galactic politics for thousands of years were being replaced by collaborative efforts to discover new worlds and entirely new possibilities. Captain Gary Wilson commanded one of the new, mixed-species exploration fleets that were pushing boldly into regions of space that had been declared forbidden under the old Council system. His ship, the UAS New Horizon, carried crew members from 17 different species, each one contributing their unique knowledge, abilities, and perspectives to the mission of discovery. Captain, we're receiving telemetry data from the automated probe we deployed in the Vega system last week, his communications officer reported. She was a Zephyrian who had once worked on developing biological weapons for her government's military forces. Now she used her extensive expertise in biochemistry to analyze the atmospheric composition of newly discovered worlds, helping to determine which ones might naturally support various forms of life. What did our probe discover out there? Gary asked with genuine excitement. 3 potentially habitable planets, sir. One of them shows definite signs of complex primitive life. Nothing that appears to be intelligent yet, but we're detecting sophisticated ecosystems that we've never encountered before anywhere else. Gary smiled with satisfaction. Under the old council system, a discovery like this would have immediately led to bitter arguments about which species had the legal right to claim ownership of the new system, followed by years of bureaucratic delays, while council officials decided who deserved access to the valuable new resources. Now the discovery would be shared immediately with every alliance member, and joint scientific teams would be assembled to study the new worlds carefully without disrupting their natural development processes. Transmit the complete survey data to the Alliance Science Directorate immediately, Gary ordered, and prepare a detailed message for the Governing Council. We've discovered another star system that's going to need full protection from commercial exploitation until we can properly understand what we're dealing with. This was perhaps the most radical change that humanity had brought to galactic civilization, the revolutionary idea that some things were far more valuable than the economic resources they could potentially provide. The Alliance had established vast nature preserves around worlds with unique ecosystems, not because they were economically worthless, but because their scientific and cultural value was literally beyond any price that could be calculated. Dr. Linda Chen stood in her magnificent new laboratory complex on New Geneva, a massive space station that orbited in the region between Earth and Mars. The research facility was larger and better equipped than anything she could have imagined during the long years when her scientific work had been constantly restricted and controlled by council regulations. More importantly, it was staffed by brilliant scientists from dozens of different species, all working together on ambitious projects that would have been completely impossible under the old system of enforced technological segregation. The quantum field generators are operating at 97% efficiency, reported her primary research assistant, a young Kethtar engineer who had grown up believing that his people's traditional warrior culture was fundamentally incompatible with serious scientific research. We should be ready for the first practical test of the new system within the next week. Linda looked with pride at the revolutionary device they had been constructing for the past 3 months. It was an advanced power generation system that combined human quantum manipulation technology with viridian energy focusing techniques and rare Altarian crystalline matrices. The final result would be completely clean, virtually unlimited energy that could be built and maintained by any species with basic industrial manufacturing capabilities. What's the estimated construction cost for a standard unit? Linda asked. Approximately 1/10 the price of a conventional fusion reactor, and it will produce 50 times as much usable energy with absolutely zero radioactive waste products. This was the incredible power of free collaboration that the Council had feared and worked to prevent for centuries. When different species were allowed to share their knowledge and expertise without artificial restrictions, they created technologies that far surpassed anything any single civilization could develop. Working alone, the deliberate limitations that had kept younger species dependent on older ones were being rapidly replaced by cooperative research programs that benefited everyone involved. Admiral Susan Blake reviewed the complete transformation of galactic defense doctrine from her office in the new Alliance military headquarters. The old system of maintaining peace through superior force and the threat of overwhelming retaliation had been entirely replaced by mutual defense pacts based on shared democratic values and completely voluntary cooperation between equals. Give me a status report on the recent Centauri incident, Susan requested from her senior aide. Resolved peacefully through negotiation, Admiral, came the immediate reply. The Regelian Republic and the Tau Ceti Federation have agreed to establish joint mining rights in the disputed asteroid belt. Both governments are using the new diplomatic mediation protocols instead of making military threats against each other. Susan nodded with deep satisfaction. The Alliance military forces were actually smaller than the old Council fleets had been, But they were also significantly more effective because they didn't have to constantly maintain control over unwilling subject populations. Their primary mission was to protect member worlds from external threats, and to provide peacekeeping support when specifically requested, not to enforce the arbitrary will of powerful species over weaker ones. The most impressive success story had been the smooth integration of former Council military officers into the Alliance command structure. Many alien commanders had expected to be treated as war criminals after the revolution, but humanity had offered them the genuine opportunity to serve in a military organization dedicated to protection and mutual defense, rather than oppression and control. Most had gratefully accepted, and their extensive experience had proven invaluable in building effective defensive strategies. Ambassador Helen Carter walked into the emergency session of the Galactic Council with the kind of confidence that made every alien delegate in the room deeply uncomfortable. 2 weeks ago, she had been just another human representative who came to these meetings to beg for basic rights and resources for her species. Now she moved like someone who held all the real power in the galaxy. And the terrifying part was that she might actually be correct. The great chamber that had once been filled with the voices of hundreds of alien representatives discussing their control over younger species was now almost completely silent. Half the seats were empty because their governments were too busy dealing with human military attacks to send anyone to the emergency meeting. The other half were occupied by beings who kept looking nervously at the doors as if they expected human soldiers to break in at any moment. The council leader was the massive tree-like creature who had dismissed Jake Morrison's requests for help just 2 weeks earlier. When he spoke now, his voice no longer carried the arrogance and certainty that had marked every council session for centuries. Ambassador Carter, the council is prepared to discuss reasonable terms for ending this unfortunate conflict between our peoples. Helen smiled in a way that would have seemed polite and diplomatic if not for the complete coldness in her eyes. I'm afraid there has been a serious misunderstanding about why I'm here today. I am not here to discuss terms with you. I am here to deliver them to you. She activated a holographic projector that filled the center of the chamber with tactical displays from battles across the galaxy. Red markers indicated locations where human military forces had achieved complete victory, and there were far more of those markers than any alien government had believed possible. In just 2 weeks of fighting, human fleets had captured or completely destroyed major military installations in 16 different star systems. The Viridian hierarchy has lost 70% of its total military fleet, Helen announced to the silent chamber. The Kethtar Imperium has been forced to abandon 8 of its most important border systems. The Zephyrian Collective has seen every one of its biological warfare facilities completely neutralized by human countermeasures. These are not bargaining positions that we're willing to negotiate about. These are simple facts about the new reality of this galaxy. What the alien governments were only beginning to understand was that humans approached warfare in ways that no other species had ever considered possible. While alien military thinking focused on controlling territory and protecting valuable assets, human strategy was designed to break the enemy's will to continue fighting. Every human attack had been carefully planned not just to destroy military targets, but to send an unmistakable message about humanity's true capabilities. Admiral Paul Anderson commanded the human fleet that was currently demonstrating those capabilities in the Rigel sector. His ships moved through space in patterns that alien military observers could only describe as completely impossible, according to every law of physics they understood. The human vessels seemed to be attacking targets in 3 different star systems at the same time, striking locations that were separated by thousands of light years almost simultaneously. The secret behind these impossible maneuvers was humanity's advanced understanding of higher dimensional space. While other species traveled through hyperspace like ships sailing across the surface of a flat ocean, humans had learned to navigate through folded regions of space and time. Their ships could take shortcuts through dimensions that didn't exist according to alien science, appearing behind enemy defensive lines before the defenders even realized they were under attack. Admiral Anderson to all fleet units, Paul announced over the quantum communication network. Execute the Prometheus Gambit immediately. The human fleet suddenly scattered in directions that made absolutely no tactical sense according to any known principles of space warfare. Some ships headed toward the galactic core while others moved toward what appeared to be completely empty space between star systems. The alien commanders who were monitoring the situation from their observation posts assumed that the humans had either lost their minds or suffered some kind of catastrophic breakdown in their command structure. They realized the magnitude of their mistake 6 hours later when every human ship arrived at its assigned target simultaneously, having taken routes through folded space-time that compressed what should have been a month-long journey into just a few hours. The aliens found themselves under coordinated attack from directions they hadn't even known were possible to approach from, by ships that shouldn't have been able to reach those locations for weeks. Captain Carol Adams activated her part of the operation from deep inside the Viridian Military Command Center on their capital world. For 12 years, she had worked as a translator and cultural liaison, helping alien commanders understand human communications during trade negotiations and routine diplomatic meetings. The Viridian officers trusted her completely, which made her betrayal even more devastating when it finally came. "I want you to know that I'm truly sorry to do this to you, Admiral Zelios," Carol said as she placed a small quantum device on the main command console. "You've always treated me with kindness and respect." The device instantly took complete control of every computer system in the command center. Warning lights began flashing red as the station's own defensive weapons turned to target Viridian military ships in orbit. Communication networks started broadcasting human surrender demands instead of Viridian military orders. Most critically, the powerful defensive shields that protected the system's capital world suddenly shut down completely. Admiral Zelios stared at Carol with eyes that had once glowed bright blue, but now seemed dim and defeated. "How long have you been working against us?" he asked in a voice that was barely above a whisper. "Since the day I first arrived here," Carol replied honestly. "Every translation I made for your staff was recorded and sent to human intelligence services. Every tactical discussion I witnessed was analyzed by our military planners. Every weakness in your defensive systems was carefully noted and reported to our commanders. I truly am sorry that it had to be this way, but your people never gave us any real choice in the matter." Similar scenes were playing out simultaneously across alien space as human deep-cover agents revealed their true identities and began sabotage operations. Bob Turner, who had married into the Kethtar ruling family and earned their respect through success in traditional combat trials, used his position of trust to turn their own elite warriors against their government. Linda Foster, who had spent 15 years working as a research scientist studying Zephyrian biological systems, released carefully designed viruses that neutralized their biological weapons without causing harm to any living beings. The aliens had made a fundamental error in their assessment of human psychology and behavior. They saw humanity's natural curiosity and eagerness to learn about other cultures as clear signs of weakness and dependence. They never realized that every human who had lived among them for years or decades was actually gathering detailed intelligence and building the networks of contacts and influence that would eventually be used to bring down their governments. On Earth, Colonel Alex Thompson led the most important operation of the entire war. His Special Forces team had successfully infiltrated the Council's Central Intelligence Facility on Nexus Prime during the confusion of the massive space battle taking place around the station. The facility contained detailed archives that documented 3,000 years of galactic history from the Council's own perspective. What Thompson and his team discovered in those archives was far worse than anyone in the human government had imagined possible. "Admiral Blake, you need to hear this immediately," Alex said over his secure quantum communicator to Earth. "The Council has been deliberately manipulating galactic civilization for thousands of years. Every major war, every natural disaster, every conflict between different species was planned and executed by them as part of a systematic program of control. The electronic files contained detailed records of how the Council had systematically eliminated any species that showed signs of becoming potential rivals. When a young civilization demonstrated too much technological promise or military potential, the Council would arrange for them to face a carefully engineered plague, a devastating civil war, or a sudden invasion by their neighbors. The few species that managed to survive these manufactured crises were allowed to join the galactic community, but only as junior members under strict Council supervision. There are records here going back to the Alterian civilization," Alex continued as he transmitted copies of the files to Earth. They were developing faster than light travel technology before the Council had even been formally established. The Council engineered their complete extinction by convincing neighboring species that the Alterians were planning to conquer the entire galaxy. They've used the same basic strategy to eliminate hundreds of potentially competitive species over the centuries. Admiral Blake felt physically sick as she listened to the reports coming from the intelligence facility. Are you telling me they were planning to do the same thing to humanity?